So hi everyone, I'm not going to introduce myself because you've heard a lot from me today, to be honest, and I'm not going to bore you silly. So hopefully what I'm hoping to achieve from this session really is for us all to kind of discuss through with one another what the challenges of the ITT market review may be. They are numerous. We could probably, sit and chat for 45 minutes just about one challenge, I think, mentoring, for example. So we're going to have a little bit of a chance to do that. I always think it's a really great opportunity when we're in the room with others who are doing similar jobs to us and in similar sectors to be able to have that opportunity to think about how they've tried to solve the challenges and the problems as well. So we'll get a chance to do that. And then what I'm going to do is walk you through the way that we at Sunderland will be using Iris Connect to overcome those challenges, which will hopefully give you a little bit more ideas of some tangible let's say, I wouldn't say kind of solving these challenges, because I don't think these challenges can be solved, but at least hopefully some way towards going to being able to do what is being asked of us. So as I said before, I have quite a unique role in that I work for Iris Connect, but I'm also I'm not really an IT lecturer. I'm on the leadership team at the university, so I don't do any teaching of trainees. I ran the English course last year, so I've had experience of doing that, but I kind of strategically oversee mentoring. So I wrote our market review application. First time round I only wrote the mentoring. We didn't get through the first round. We only got through on the mentoring on the first round, so we got 4 out of 5 on that, which I believe was the highest mark in the country, which was very exciting. However, on the rest of the sections we didn't get through, and we've been very honest about that, spoken about it at USET meetings. I know that my dean will not mind me saying it to you today. And then we reapplied, so I had to write the whole application this time round, and we managed to get through, thank goodness. So there'll be lots of you sat in front of me today who had similar experiences. It's been quite painful. I totally agree that reform needed to happen in some ways. The market was too fragmented, or is still too fragmented. However, I think the way it's been done has been quite difficult for everybody concerned. Now, essentially what we're doing as teacher educators, or those who develop others, is trying to work towards expertise. Now, I'm just looking at you with that there. Yeah. That's annoying, isn't it? Do you want to just push it out the way? Yeah. Yeah, it must be really annoying to sit there with that. Be careful though, because I always give myself blood blisters when I put those up at conferences. Are you okay now? Yeah. Yes, okay, brilliant. Yes. So we're all trying to sort of work towards expertise with newly developing teachers. That's our aim. So as Andy said before, our platform is essentially based on this idea of building towards expertise incrementally. I like to think of it as the snowball effect, as it rolls down the hill, getting better and better and better. And obviously none of us are kind of ever the finished article. We've always got something that we can develop. So we believe that this is our sort of classic teacher development model that we have structured UnityPD around. We believe that these are all kind of the elements that we would use when developing teachers, particularly in ITE. So we might record using our discovery kit. We would deconstruct the lesson, just like I've spoken about and Andy's spoken about today. We might create prompts, again another one of those mechanisms that was mentioned on the EF's research. We discuss those prompts. We might go into these practice banks, these libraries of practice that we have, and look at models, look at rehearsal, and obviously we've got that triangulation with theory and the knowledge base. So that's, it's a pretty standard model of teacher development. We've spoken a lot about Sam Sims' research with the EF today. And in my session earlier on, I said that we had mapped all of our Iris Connect offering against the EF mechanisms, and we had all of them. When we first did this and mapped it, we didn't have one, which was the sort of cues and prompts and the ability to track, and we now have that, as Andy demonstrated to you earlier. So this is where this kind of all adds on. So you can know that as people working at kind of the heart of teacher development and of ITE, that you are using a program that is based on really robust research. It's got real fidelity. So, as I said before, the ITT market review has been a difficult process. I'm going to give you the opportunity now on your tables, just for 5 minutes or so, to talk about what the key challenges are that you think come from this review, that you are facing in your settings, and then hopefully we'll come together to get some solutions, and I can model what we're doing in our setting as well. So 5 minutes.
on whether when that person's interviewed, whether they come, even though they come into my department, it will be the director of geography, and it will be the professional who will decide whether they come in. Yeah, me as a head of department will take accountability for how my department. So that for us is our is a challenge. But
what's your setting? Sorry, where were you from?
Co-op Academy Bevington, but the Co-op Academy Trust has now got its own skit.
So, yes, the guy who runs it follows me on Twitter.
Chris Tomlinson.
That's it.
Yeah. So they've got it. So it's only in its second year.
Oh, okay.
So
I think lots of big trusts are going to be doing this.
And there are some aspects that are working well, and that's. We've all got departmental teaching and learning time built into our timetables now. That's great. And a lot of the pressures of having training teachers within a school setting, because their mentor will be the director of learning for that subject, so that's taken out. And the professional mentor in school will deal with the rest of it. But what it has meant is that the actual leaders of the subjects within the school settings who will have the training in their departments don't have any input into. So that actually, it's those people who are then held accountable at the end of the process.
That's quite difficult.
So although it's creative, there are lots of positives, there are now different challenges for us coming through the back door.
Okay, I think that's probably a reasonably natural place to stop, because I think most kind of conversations were sort of dying out there. And before I take any feedback, which I will do in just a second, I just want to put this up there, because colleagues, I feel for you. I went through the process as well, as I said, and like total and utter solidarity. So does anybody want to feed back what they think some of the challenges might be? And it can be about anything to do with the market review.
We just finished up talking about like the challenges keeping on board and developing and keeping in the profession, experienced colleagues who are available to mentor our initial teachers and our CTs. So like the increased demand of both of those programs concurrently, like alongside the recruitment process, is like a big challenge, I think.
No, 100%. And I think what's been interesting that we've certainly seen at Sunderland has been that a lot of our mentors who are ITT mentors are also ECF mentors, and they're saying that actually the workload is too big for them to do both, because the training that they are now getting from ITT or ITE, whatever you want to phrase it, can be quite kind of repetitive of what they're getting in the early career framework. And because the early career framework is statutory, so they have to do it. They're saying actually we're not going to take trainees, and we're seeing that quite a lot at Sunderland, and it's probably getting increasingly widespread, I think. As somebody who also delivers the early career framework, I've got like 8 groups, and I deliver that for UCL. I've noticed as well that so many mentors aren't turning up to the training. I don't know whether you guys notice that, Teach First as well, or Ambition. So I will have like a mentor group, and out of say 30 mentors that I'm supposed to have, I might have two mentors, and they're not engaging with the training, but the schools are still being paid, which I think is a massive issue as well. So at first the DFE said that they wouldn't pay the schools if the mentors and trainees didn't engage with the training, and then they changed their minds. So I don't know whether we've got any Teaching School Hub colleagues here, but that put Teaching School Hubs in a really difficult position. So like my local 2 teaching school hubs that I work with were fuming about that, because it's really put them in a difficult position of them telling trainees and mentors all year, if you don't engage, your school won't get funded, and then they've been funded anyway. So that's quite difficult. Anything else to do with mentoring in particular before we move on to some of the other things? We've got capacity, we've got time, maybe. Anything else?
Expertise. I think that's it depends on the setting, but because of the kind of frameworks that underpin the core content framework requires extensive expertise in it's like
and quite an evidence and research that might not be familiar to all mentors as well. I think I'm probably right in saying, please disagree with me if you think this isn't the case, that a lot of mentor training in the past revolved around what I would term as nuts and bolts sort of training. So, many many of us in this room will have been trainees to NQTs, as was, or to trainees, and it was the training was very much, here's the paperwork, here's the deadlines for filling it in, this is the way that we do things, here's how you fill in the lesson observation forms, here's how you use Pebble Pad or whatever you're using to track. That's had to change, and ITE has had to do a massive amount of work on actually formulating whole mentor curriculums, which we'll talk about in just a second, to make sure that all of our mentors are completely up to date with the research that underpins both of those frameworks, because what I found is that some trainees and ECTs have gone into schools and have had more expertise in those research strategies than the mentor, and that's obviously it's kind of had a bit of incongruence really in that sort of purposeful integration between the university and the school. So there's been sort of issues there, like we've had our trainees coming back to us saying that, oh, my school are still differentiating learning objectives, and we've told them that shouldn't be the case, or my school are still using VARC, and that's the issues that we're facing. There's a lot of work, I think, that needs to be put in there. So mentoring's a big issue. Anybody found any issues with partnerships? Increased role of the partnerships, maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. Intensive training and practice, another one, or ITAPs, that funky acronym that we're calling them, and that's something else I'll talk about in just a second. So what I thought would be really useful is maybe for me to talk through my role at the University of Sunderland, how I would use the Iris Connect platform for each of the challenges that we face to be able to overcome those barriers, because it'll give you some really tangible ideas then of how we could use it going forward. And this isn't like the way everybody should be using it. This is just my vision of how I see it. You might listen to me and think, well, we wouldn't use it for that, and I'd be really interested to hear your ideas as well. So the first thing is obviously observations. Now, in my setting at the University of Sunderland, we're one of the biggest teacher training providers. We're the biggest in the North East. We don't have Teach First numbers. You guys like, ooh, blow my mind. But we have a lot of trainees. So I think altogether, including, we run IQTS as well, an international PGC. So I've got about 1,600 mentors. So it's a massive, massive undertaking. We can't physically go in and observe all of those students, so that video observation tool is massively important. It's also important in terms of observing mentoring conversations as well, in terms of quality assurance, because we'll talk about mentoring challenges a bit more in a minute, but obviously the quality assurance of mentors is going to have much more of a heightened impact, I think, post 2024. So obviously that's really important. Some of you might be in settings, in rural settings. We have one of our customers is Aberdeen University. You can imagine how rural some of their settings are. So they use our platform for observation of their trainees unbelievably effectively. It's amazing because they can't just hop on a boat to the Isle of Skye. I'm not going to mention the Isle of Skye, Andy. No, yeah, he broke down there in his camper van at the weekend, so yeah. So yeah I'm on an island. So obviously in rural settings like that, or in teaching school hubs, for example, we, through our relationship with the Education Development Trust, one of our teaching school hubs is Lead. You may have heard of Lead Teaching School Hub. They have an absolutely ginormous area. A lot of teaching school hubs and skits do, so this is just a game changer completely and utterly.
Can I go a bit of hard sell on that as well?
Go on.
Don't forgive me, but if you get me the details of the travel budget and the considerations around that, then I can tell you how we could reduce the number of in-person visits and cover the cost of using Iris Connect. Because one of the things that via University, one of our partners in Denmark, they actually did a full kind of time and motion study, reduced the number of site visits by 2, so they're still getting 3, cover the cost of Iris, and then able to be more adaptive about who gets the support. So rather than spending your time driving around, you can say, well, actually that trainee needs more support. I'm going to spend more time with them. I'm going to physically visit them more frequently. So anyway, hard to label, but yeah.
And we have two colleagues from Teach First here, hello, and again, one of our partners who upload literally thousands of reflections every single month, and it's used really well there for observation as well. So doing this at scale is completely possible, and really easy, and actually quite viable. So mentoring challenges, there are several. This is my area. I can talk for England on this. So the first one is a curriculum for mentors. As I said before, a curriculum for mentors was very much usually the nuts and bolts. We have implemented at the University of Sunderland the market review recommendations already. We did it in September as a trial to try and see what it was like. It's been interesting, is what I would say. So many of you will know that mentors, sort of bog standard mentors, are now being asked to do 20 hours of training from 2024 a year. Lead mentors, which is a role that doesn't actually exist at the moment but will do in the next year, who are sort of in charge of mentors regionally, if you like. They're not the same as induction tutors, that is a different role. Lead mentors are going to be required to do 30 hours of training. It's a lot. So we've had to formulate a whole mentor curriculum and have formulated it around 3 pillars, the nuts and bolts that we spoke about before, which we can do, to be honest, in a Teams meeting very quickly. The real thing is the mentor curriculum in terms of pedagogy. So we're going to build groups basically for each of those kind of standards, or the cluster of standards, the foundation concepts, on the Iris Connect platform, and within those we will utilise some of the theory groups that you've seen from before. I built them like that purposefully with those in mind, didn't we, Andy, so that they could fit in really well for ITE who wanted to do it for mentor curriculum. And I think that's going to be something that Sheffield Hallam are going to use for their mentors. So mentors can access it in their own time, because one of the biggest things I've found this year with implementing the changes has been that we have our sort of pedagogy boosts, we call them, every fortnight for half an hour on a Tuesday at 4 o'clock. We did have them on a Wednesday, and then mentors said, no, sorry, Wednesday's a really busy day for meetings. So because hardly anybody was coming, and you probably all experienced this sort of mentors not turning up for training, and then we changed it to a Tuesday, and then it made absolutely no difference whatsoever. So we record them, we put them onto a YouTube channel, but we're going to utilise these groups instead for that, so that mentors can do it at their own pace, in their own time, and it's completely led by them rather than having to turn up at a specific time. And as was demonstrated earlier, if they use one of the pathways, we're going to create a mentoring pathway, because you could create your own pathway that is your way of mentoring, if you like we have our Sunderland way. Our mentors can follow that, and you can track them if you're the person who's got a strategic overview of that, and see how they're all getting on that dashboard that Andy showed before. Oh yeah, it didn't work, did it? Yeah. You can show it in a minute if you like, after this, yeah. And then the third sort of pillar that we've done at Sunderland is the actual mentoring and coaching skills, because as I've mentioned in my previous talk, loads and loads of research that tells us that, the skills of being a really effective teacher and an effective coach or mentor are distinct. They're not the same thing. I've known loads of absolutely epic teachers, bloody awful mentors, so they have to be completely separate. So where are we training our mentors and coaches to have really rich coaching conversations, to use probing questions? How many of us have actually had training in how to observe properly? I don't think I ever did. And after a couple of years, I was a middle leader in a school and observing colleagues for performance management, it blows my mind, really. So, how to observe, how to set granular targets. There's all sorts of really distinct mentoring and coaching skills that have to form part of a curriculum. That's where our pathways might come in as well. So that's kind of how we will use it. Obviously, there's the QA that I mentioned before. You've got the dashboard that Andy didn't show us before, but might do if we have time now. So you can keep a track of that. You can ask mentors sort of every month, if you like, to film themselves having a mentoring conversation, so you can look at the kind of feedback that's being given for that. It's just a massively valuable tool in terms of that. And obviously, we're not saying, our whole kind of remit isn't sort of top-down performance management. That's not what we're about. But we understand that there is this kind of quality assurance that hopefully will result in quite rich improvement for mentor and trainee or ECT from using video to do that. And then the other thing is purposeful integration. If we had to do a bingo card of market review words, you know, like some people do a drinking game of the general election, I think this is one of the words that will come up. For those of us who are scratching our heads thinking, what on earth does purposeful integration mean? It basically means that there's a closer alliance between what's being studied at the university and what's being enacted in schools or in the skit or wherever people are training. So it used to be, certainly a few years ago, and even more than a few years ago when I was training myself, that what I would do at university would bear little resemblance actually to what I was doing in the classroom. And that's why these frameworks have been brought in by the DFE. Whether you love them or you loathe them, it doesn't really matter. They're there to try and bridge that gap, to make some of the abstract theories that new teachers are reading into concrete actions in the classroom. And that's where this use of video, for me, is absolutely instrumental. So, you know, you can watch those videos of particular strategies that you've read the theory behind being enacted. You can pause them, you can deconstruct them. It's just incredible for that. And also it gives mentors access to some of the things that you're doing at university as well. We've designed a passport this year, which I think might be rolled out by the DFE possibly, because we've passed it along to them, where it details what we're doing in the centre and what they should be doing in the school to support them. But you can do that miles easier than paper by doing it on the platform where everyone can log in. Anything to add, Andy? Brill. Okay. So partnerships. So nobody mentioned this, but I think a lot of ITE providers are really having a bit of a nightmare over partnerships at the moment. So they've always had very strong partnerships with local schools, school direct, etc. But there's now, the market review is telling us that we need to have now more collaboration with our local partners. So that involves teaching school hubs as well. I think there's 81 teaching school hubs there are something in the country, something around those lines, who are mandated by the Department for Education to be sort of leaders of teaching and learning and research in their areas. So now HEIs have kind of always stuck quite clear of teaching school hubs, but now we're being asked to work in collaboration with them, kind of leading the way in terms of research. So what that means is that our partners in our regional areas will be having more of a hand in the training that you do in HEIs or in IT providers, and the curriculum as well. So we're being expected to have sort of expert advisory groups with local partners in all phases, so they have a real input into what's going on in the provider. Also, as part of that is the lead mentor role that I spoke about a little bit before. Lead mentors are going to have a massive job keeping track of all the mentors in their regional area. There's a bit of people are unsure about how the role of lead mentor is actually going to work at the moment. There's some talk from some webinars that I've been to with the DFE of lead mentors being seconded from schools for maybe a day or a couple of days a week. I'm not sure whether that is going to be the case or not, but those lead mentors, just imagine how valuable it would be for them to be able to have all of their mentors in one of our groups and be able to keep track of what they're doing, be able to watch those videos of practice, being able to do joint observations with mentors at scale in a massive regional area. So for lead mentors, it's just going to be a game changer.
Yeah, that triangular observation process where, like, you share a video to a group, both of us can come in and effectively record our feedback against it, and then see each other's feedback. So that's really fruitful space to be able to have a conversation about what's different between what I'm saying, you're saying, what can we learn from one another, etc.
And even having somebody from the university in there as well, because the lead mentors might not necessarily be university or skit staff, they might be local leaders in schools, etc. as well. There's still a lot of ambiguity about what that role is going to look like.
I'm going to do a little naughty here just because it's so relevant. One of the cardinal rules of doing work I do is you don't say something's coming, because you do, someone wants it tomorrow. I think you saw in the demonstration I gave there, you've got a video and then you've got the time-linked comments. Those time-linked comments will, at some point in the not entirely distant future, you see I've used language there, be video notes as well. So you'll be able to click on.
I didn't know that.
A web notes. Brand new information. Click on record, and then you'll be able to record yourself, either rephrasing something, your intonation, modelling out a different strategy, and then they'll be able to see that at the timeline on video relating to where.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. And then, last but certainly not least, ITAPs, and this is the bit that we're all kind of crying into our keyboards about, to be honest. So for those of you who haven't kind of read the market review, ITAPs stand for intensive training and practice. I think they're 20 days, I think. You can have them at any time over the year of the PGCE. I think it's longer for undergraduate courses. I think it might be about 26 days, something like that, but don't quote me. And what will happen is some of these ITAPs can be done in schools, in the trainees placement schools. Some might be done in a centre, in the university, in the skip building, whatever you're working in. And they will be intensive placements based on honing a really specific and granular skill, and it will bring trainees together who are all struggling with that particular area. So, for example, if a trainee is struggling with behaviour management, it will bring a group of trainees from that local area together to work together to look at expert practice, to deconstruct expert practice, to maybe rehearse some expert practice, watch other people teaching. The ITAPs don't actually have to have them teaching in front of a class themselves. It's more about kind of watching and learning together. So that's one of the reasons why we're looking at this library of practice, one of many reasons, because being able to have that library of practice at your fingertip if you are organising these intensive training and placements is just gold dust, because we've got about that bank of practice there of those strategies being enacted that you can deconstruct, you can discuss the active ingredients if you like, and sort of watch that expert practice as well. Trainees could also film themselves as well, doing it for rehearsal, and you can give feedback from that, and they could even, you know, do it again and film a show reel, and you could see sort of the incremental progress. And there's also those theory groups as well that Andy demonstrated earlier and I got up to chat about, for any of the gaps in knowledge, because our trainees will have those gaps in knowledge for those particular areas. Sarah Cottingham, incredible colleague of Sarah's, talks a lot about kind of activating memory, and memory being attached to context, and I think, you know, these theory groups are really perfect for that and being able to discuss what's being taught in them, and they obviously have those clips of strategies in action as well, which bridges that gap. And I mentioned before about keeping track of progress. You can see my woeful progress on my reflection pathway at the top there of 10%. I've been busy, guys, zooming up and down the country. That's the only reason why, but I'm going to get on it. So, you know, they're the pre-built ones that Andy showed us earlier that we had. Sunderland will be building our own mentoring pathway, which is based on our way of mentoring. We've had to completely change our approach to mentoring this year, so we are being quite directive about what we'd like our mentors to do, so we get the consistency, and then after that we'll be able to you know, be, I wouldn't say laissez-faire, but be a bit more open about mentors using their own expertise and approach. You know, we know that it's not one size fits all, but these pathways are a really useful scaffold for mentors to use. You know, Sarah talked before about capacity issues with experienced colleagues. I'm increasingly finding people who've been teaching 3 years as mentors, they've just literally come out of their ECF years themselves, but it's all, if I go back to Hunger Games, they're the only ones who volunteered as tribute. So, you know, it's true though. So unfortunately, you know, they might need more scaffolds and more support, and these pathways are absolutely perfect for that. So we've got about 1 minute, I think, before Vesna's going to come here and shout at me and tell me to finish. Just to finish off, really, you know, is there anything that kind of, quick discussion on your tables, you know, is there anything that really resonated with you, that you had that spark moment then when you were listening to that and thought, you know, we could actually use that for doing X, Y and Z, and what do you have to do to make that happen? So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes on your table just to discuss anything.
Like, what I really like about this is that it's literally
exciting
all
times.
set out, and I think that's a massive, massive time saver, and actually potentially makes some of the content really accessible, because at the minute it feels very much like there's just so much, and actually where you get that starting point and that inroad. You know, so I don't think, same with the iTags, actually, if they can just sit and there's some really good quality reels at a one-stop shop, then actually,
particularly with the library that they're going to be building, where you can actually start searching model practice, but you'll be able to say this. You've got you'll have the structure there through UnityPD, but then you've got the opportunity to go off on your little segues, and I think that's always very important, is you'll have your individual pathways for staff, but there will still be that whole school structure that isn't going to be following that exact prescriptive nature that's outlined there, but you've got the flexibility to go off then.
I suppose my question is in terms of like subscriptions, say for example we're going to work for Nottingham Trent, we have a subscription as a MAT, but then how do we work together using these platforms, and does the university need their own subscription to it?
Are you already a customer?
We are as a MAT. But I would say that the university isn't, so could we...
You don't actually, I mean, it would be great if they did, but if there are only a few select people, then you can do...
outside your organisation.
So they
and then you can build a collaboration set called a network, and that way you can share together, and they'd have each have a few licenses at wherever wasn't part of your school, and they'd be able to see and participate in everything that you're doing.
Would they be able to see sort of the UnityPD
they
to
could
actually get involved in that? Because
You're basically lending a license
right
outside the organisation.
The way, again, going slightly commercial on it, the way we would see that is essentially sort of a mini sales pitch to the university to say, right, you've got a
What
segue
uni is
in
it?
to use it.
Nottingham Trent.
Oh, okay. I don't know whether we've had many conversations with
It's
them.
one of smart moves, and I think
Is it?
the name rings a bell.
So what they're thinking of doing, because obviously one of my big question, it's something that we are, like I said earlier, we're going to put to our mat, is actually that recognition factor for mentors, because we have that massively for coaching, but you know, this is a huge piece of work for our mentors and really, really important, because they're going to flex between the two, and it's a real skill set that needs celebrating. And it seems like it's a one-stop shop where actually you can get so much from it. And my question was, obviously as a map, we've got, you know, engagement in Iris and things like that. So if we were to go to NTU and sort of say, you know, because they've talked about 6 hours asynchronous learning, as, you know, to give back to schools, and again, there's a massive opportunity there.
Yeah, there is.
And again, we're sat on these partnerships groups and in terms of, oh gosh, right, how are we going to logistically manage it? They're talking
I mean,
about
schools as well have got no idea of what's coming, like at all.
That's right. Because there's a member of my department who is at the moment art-based professional mentor, ECT coordinator, and he's teaching a geography curriculum. That is not going to happen.
No, it needs to be a full-time role.
And the thing for me is actually, you know, in terms of sort of partnerships, we know we're probably 90% going to partner with them.
Yeah.
You know, if we look at that as a little bit of a platform, because it's literally got everything.
Yeah, and the good thing is as well that what we do at Sunderland is we audit our mentors. So at the beginning of the year they fill in an audit saying what previous training they've had, and they rate themselves. And obviously self-rating sometimes isn't the most reliable, but what I do then is triangulate it against their feedback and things, because we get some mentors who say our top level is embedding, and we get some mentors who say they're embedding on everything, and then I look at the feedback and they're giving feedback like improved questioning, and it's like that's not granular enough, so you're clearly not embedding. But we audit our mentors so that we can then give them bespoke training. So if they are an ECF mentor, they don't have to do the theory groups, because they've done that all with ECF. If they've done the MPQ LTD, they don't have to look at learning design and some of the mechanisms. So that is the thing. It's about knowing your cohort really well, which obviously with 1,600 mentors is a bit of a ridiculous task.
But theoretically, NTU, because let's say as a trust we've actually got that license, you know, for all of our schools to use it, then they could actually come in on that.
They could, yeah. I guess, I don't know. I mean, you know more about that than me. I'm
It's probably a shorter term thing. To say, look, because it would have to get to the point you couldn't give everybody Nottingham Trent, but just say that in the initial instance of allowing them to see the potential, then when they start seeing how they're using travel, supply, cover expenses, then we'll just say, well, actually, look, you as a university invest in it, and then we can create those collaboration networks.
And then you can make your own groups and kind of have them, obviously your own separate for your school, but then those collaboration ones together, and they're like access pretty much everything.
Just ask the question. I run Impact Matters. We're the education consultancy that supports sort of the west of the country. I think it's Smart Move that will support you. So speak to Harley or Katie and just say, look, Katie. So
I'll just say,
just say, look, we're going to be working with Nottingham Trent. This is what we'd like to do, and she'll ask the question.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's really helpful because I kind of think there's so many good things here. You know, that does make it a reciprocal learning opportunity.
I think once they see and start using it and actually see what good value for money it actually is, because I think it's one of those platforms that until you're actually sitting and getting to know it and kind of digging a bit deeper into it, I think you'll find that they'll come on board.
Yeah, I mean, for universities as well, it's a no-brainer. Like, particularly the size of that, it would literally be working out at probably anywhere between £50 to £100 per user per year. And I was just like, what's a mentor going to do for £100? Even highball at £200. Like, go out and see 2 people, and you're done. Like, you literally support every one of your trainees as often as you want. I think Andy was saying there's another university in Finland where the mentors were actually flying to schools just because of the degree of applications. Like, they were talking, like, the cost saving was just
like the environmental impact.
Even just reducing the carbon footprint.
But
Exactly.
the trouble is, the issue that we've always had, it's a little bit like selling Christmas to turkeys, because a lot of the mentors are quite like, get out of my car and I'll stop in the services for lunch, and then I'll go and do my mentor, I'll do my feedback, and I'll write it up. And look, they can still do a bit of that if they want, but they don't need to be driving every day.
Oh yeah, go on then. I know loads of people who deliver the MPQH and have never been ahead. I find that blows my mind. But because I deliver every facet, I have that great overview of what's included in each thing, and we've made sure that at Sunderland we don't replicate, because mentors have got enough to do already.
There is a power to mentors having completed an MPQ though. I think that's
I mean, I'm not sure the LTD is what it set out to be, though, if I'm completely honest, because it actually is nothing to do with mentoring. It's to do with leading professional development in a school, which I think is incredibly useful, but it's not mentoring.
No.
And I think that's why the Chartered College have stepped in with chartered mentor status. So all of our mentors are going to get chartered mentor status, because they've cross-referenced their curriculum at Chartered College with ours at Sunderland, and it's got loads of similarities, so they're going to miss out modules and get chartered status. But NASBIT's mentoring modules are brilliant as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's really
So yeah, but hopefully that was useful.
Yeah.
But if any of you want more of a chat about ITE and what you're going to do kind of with the market view, just give me a shout. I must meet about 30 people a week, and we're all kind of having a cathartic moan together about what we're going to do.